What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So we're finally getting to some of the movie reviews that I've been trying to get through, trying to pull together. So as I mentioned yesterday, if you watched the first part of the Dexter Resurrection review of episodes 1 and 2, I'm going to try and keep TV series episode reviews and movie reviews to roughly 8 to 10 minutes. We're not doing extremely deep dives into these films. Now, if we do, I'll call that out if it's a special circumstance. Otherwise, I'm keeping it fairly high level as far as what the film was roughly about, my likes, dislikes, my final score out of 5 on it, and would I recommend you go watch it or not. I'll still give that recommendation, but even after that, I would still tell you go watch any and every TV series and film for yourself. As far as allowing people to sway you, I don't allow critics or other reviewers to sway me. If I see a trailer or I see something and it intrigues me, it interests me, I'm gonna watch it. And there's been plenty of times, I'm sure for all of you, that there's been TV series or movies where people absolutely hate them, but you absolutely love them. I know there's plenty of those on my end as well. So as you see here on the screen, we are taking a look at Clown in a Cornfield. Now, I know this is based on a novel written by Adam Cesar, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not sure if I am, but hopefully I'm close. I have never read the novel. I don't know anything about what's in the novel, how close it is or isn't to this film that came out this year. So I'm strictly speaking off the movie. And I think we all can say and know that there's going to be vast differences between a novel and a movie. I think in every circumstance there always is. The book is far more detailed, has a lot more content into it, probably a lot of things that add to the story to help it go further along than in the movies. And in movies we've seen where things are completely cut out, not just, story aspects, but even characters overall are completely removed and replaced. So that may happen here, don't know. But again, we're speaking strictly on the movie. Spoilers. Spoiler alert. We're going to be talking spoilers. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, if you haven't seen the movie, be prepared. For the next roughly 5 minutes, we're going to be talking spoilers. So let's get into it. So, Clown in a Cornfield. Right off the rip, I mean, it's your typical teen horror attempting to be a slasher film. It's also tagged as a mystery thriller. I don't see that at all. It's pretty obvious what's going on, who the killer. It's not even a killer. It's who the killers are. Again, I've already mentioned spoilers. I've already given you the fair warning. We're going to be talking spoilers. So while you see here on the screen, and as we saw in the trailer, Frendo the clown is obviously the villain here. But in this film, there's not one Frendo. There are multiple Frendos. They tried to at first make you believe it's just one, but then when we get to about, I'd say halfway, a little more than halfway through the film, probably where the film attempts to start to pick up with its kills and action. And this is where they're actually in the cornfield, where they're having a party at this traditional party at the barn. And next thing you know, we see one Frendo come out of the cornfield, and the next thing you know, once that Frendo is shot and killed by one of the kids with this shotgun, a whole bunch of other Frendos start coming out of the cornfield and attacking. But before we get to that part in the film, so this is primarily following the teen. The character's name is Quinn, played by Katie Douglas. Primarily following her, but there is already an established group of friends in this small town going to the school. There you have Cole, Janet, Ronnie, Tucker, and Matt. Those are the core group of kids or teens that are kind of being followed throughout this story. And then there's kind of one not off to the side. His name is Rust. We don't see him that often. We see him at the beginning of the film when Quinn is off to her first day at school. He walks her to school. And then we don't see him again maybe 2 or 3 times after that before he then plays somewhat of an important role at the end. But that's pretty much it. His role compared to the other teens in this teen slasher is very small. So As the film goes on, it definitely sets the tone and expectation. And actually, before we even get into the present time, we start off the film in 1991, and then it moves into present time. And when we're in present time, you can see that the town is still very much stuck in a time period of where they don't know how to move on. At least the adults don't know how to move on. They like it keeping a very small town, very simplistic, where it's like they don't want like modern day stuff and modern day world coming into their little town. And the town is I don't want to say run down, but it's hit pretty hard because of the famous corn syrup factory that burned down. It obviously held a lot of jobs, and the town was founded by this particular family who's still very much there. And Cole, who is one of the teenagers, he's part of that family. He's that next generation of the founders of this town, right? So as we continue to move along, the group of friends, they're the sheriff and other adults in the town see this small group of teens as troublemakers. They're constantly always apparently in trouble, and what they do is they film these videos for YouTube. One or any of them dressing up as Frendo, right? So as the film goes on, though, they start getting these little jack-in-the-boxes placed around, and the first one to get it is Tucker. So Tucker is in his house. He thinks one of his friends or someone in the group is playing a trick on him. He goes upstairs, finds the jack-in-the-box, starts to turn the knob, so to speak, or the thing on the side, and it pops open. And they say, someone dressed up as Frendo comes in and murks him, slashes his throat. Now, what doesn't make sense about this entire scene is when he walks into his room and all this happens, once he's killed and he falls to the ground, he falls on plastic lining that is covering the floor, because then we see Frendo roll him up into this plastic lining. Dude, you're walking into you're walking in your house, you walk into your room, you don't notice the plastic lining laying on your floor that probably you didn't put there. So that was a pretty obvious thing that stood out, that just didn't make sense as far as the role of the story. But again, I'm sure that's not what they were worried about. So we continue to move on. Matt is the next one to get taken out. Now, Matt is the one we covered his kill on one of the sneak peek scenes that we covered on this movie before the film came out. He's the one lifting weights. Frendo, he also has this jack-in-a-box that gets put on his weight bench. He doesn't worry about it, throws it in the trash, and Frendo shows up, and then while he's got the bench press bar above already lifted, Frendo comes over with this saw blade, puts it there, pushes down the barbell, cutting his head off, and it rolls over into a cooler. And that's it. I mean, both kills very quick, not much to him, not a whole lot of fight between the victim and the villain. And then Frendo kind of just walks off. They try to add some humor by his shoes squeaking as he walks away. And then again, we continue to move on. Now we get to this parade, and they're wondering, like, well, why hasn't Tucker called us? And then, this is before Matt was killed. Why hasn't Tucker called us? And then when Matt was killed, they're at the barn party, and they're like, well, we can't find Tucker or Matt. They're not responding to our texts or calls. And no one thought to maybe go to their house and find them. No, let's just continue to text and call with no answer, no worries, and let's just keep moving on. This is where it gets, and right before the barn party, one of the teens made a comment in the film that something is off with the adults in this town, right? So something seems off by them. And when you see how the adults treat the teenagers, like one of the teachers in the school, the waitress at the diner, the sheriff, you see how they're treating this group of teenagers. And when you see that and you hear there's something off by them, it's immediately obvious that they are all Frendo, right? That they are all dressing up as Frendo committing these crimes. And they are. Just to put it out there, they are. So when we get to the barn party, when the first Frendo comes out of the field with the crossbow, and we saw this in a scene as well where he shoots the crossbow and takes out one of the kids. That's when they all realize, hey, this isn't a prank, this is real. And then he gets killed with the shotgun. All the other Frendos come out. It's all the adults in town. They're all just dressed up as Frendo trying to take out these kids, right? Because again, they're stuck in their ways. They don't think this new generation respects the old ways. And the old ways, I mean, we're referring to the 90s. It's I don't know why we're thinking that that's the old ways, but I'll get to that. So and now it's a cat and mouse, right? It's your typical teen slasher, your typical teen horror. They're trying to escape. They're running in all the wrong directions, and we get to a point where I think the only two kills that I thought were pretty good in this film were Ronnie and Janet. So when Ronnie is killed, when it was just Ronnie, Janet, and Quinn, now by themselves in the cornfield. Ronnie is running, and next thing you know, as she's not looking ahead, she turns, and one of the Frendos slams a chainsaw right into her midsection and just gets it going. It has that Terrifier reminder bit to it. I thought that was pretty good. That was a pretty good kill. Then as Janet and Quinn find a house nearby, they get into this house. There's a person there dressed up as Frendo. They think that the person's dead. They look dead, but come on, it's a horror film. It's a teen slasher horror film. Of course, they're not dead. They're just sitting there pretending to be dead. This is where I start to feel where they're calling out like today's generation versus the older generation. They run upstairs. They find a phone. And they're like, let's call 911. They pick up the receiver and they're like, how do you use this phone? What type of phone? It's a rotary phone. And they're clearly pointing out the fact that neither one of these kids knows what a rotary phone is, what it looks like, how to use it. So that was one of those blatant like point outs, like, a disconnect between generations. They make it back downstairs. Janet ends up getting killed in I think a very humorous way, because she gets a pitchfork to the midsection and stuck up into the ceiling as she's then, I think, being electrocuted. Gets thrown back down to the ground. Quinn then runs over to her, pulls the pitchfork out of her, and then stabs the person dressed up as Frendo, who then falls down next to her. And they try to add this bit of humor, right? Like, oh, that really hurt. Yeah, that sucked. And then they both die. Which just seemed really corny to me. We end up, eventually Quinn gets captured, gets taken to the factory that's been burned down, where Cole is as well. And the big reveal, again, something we already knew, it's all the town adults that are a Frendo, and it's Cole's dad who is leading them. Again, the great grandson or grandson of the founder of the town. Ultimately, the teacher, the sheriff, the waitress, they all end up getting their kills. I think the shopkeeper who runs like a little convenience store, he had the best kill. He was up against a wall, and a steel beam came swinging down and just decapitated him, slamming up against the wall. It was almost like a Final Destination type kill. Other than that, they were pretty basic kills. Like one lady the waitress had a pipe go through her, big whoop. The sheriff had a cattle prod put into his mouth and electrocuted to death. Okay, seen that a million times. Nothing new. And ultimately, when there's one Frendo left, there's Cole, there's Rust, there's Quinn and her dad, who are getting into this old Beetle, that Volkswagen Beetle that just happens to be at the factory, that just happens to be still able to run. And when she gets in, and this happened earlier in the film as well when she was being chased, she gets in and it's a manual, it's a stick shift, and she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to drive stick shift. And they make a joke about this a couple other times earlier in the film. And when her dad's like, no, you can do it, and tells her how to, use the clutch and everything, so she starts to get in the first gear, and then he says punch it, and she just pulls back the stick shift, which how it was perceived in the film would never have happened. She runs into this other person dressed as Frendo, who just you would think when you run into somebody, we've seen in many other horror films, like the body gets hit, they either get ran over or they tumble over the car. This person just happened to explode and disintegrate into pure liquid across the windshield. And of course, what do you think happens next? They turn on the windshield wipers, and then we watch the old Volkswagen Beetle from like the 70s driving down the dirt road, putting along with like the fire back from the exhaust, and it just, that's it. This has to be probably the quintessential teen horror film, and I was not expecting this when we were doing the trailer reviews and the scenes. I was expecting some of it, but not it to be exactly what it was. Out of 5, I'm giving this a 1.5, 2, and that's being generous. It's not good. It's not that good. Does it have some entertaining aspects to it? Yeah, but overall, it's exactly what it is. It's a teen horror film where they're pointing out the stupidity in some aspects of teens where they're like, oh, I don't know how to drive a manual, or what's a rotary phone, or just these simple things, right? So anyways, I know we went a little bit long on this review, a little bit longer than I had expected, but there was just a lot I wanted to cover off on this. Again, I'm giving this one a 1.5 out of 5. If you haven't bought it or rent it, don't. Wait for it to show up on a streaming platform you already have. And then at that point, if there's literally nothing else to watch, then maybe watch it. And, I think it's like an hour and a half. Your typical horror film, teen/horror film. And it's an hour and a half. Burn an hour and a half and watch it, and let me know what you think. Drop a comment in the comment section. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. If you haven't seen it, again, wait for it to come out on streaming. It will I think Shudder was a part of this film. So if you have Shudder, more than likely it will end up on Shudder. I'm sure here in the next month or two. So anyways, that's going to do it for my quick review of Clown in the Cornfield. 1.5, maybe a 2 out of 5, nothing more than that. And this will not be a film I revisit. This has no rewatch value for me whatsoever. And I know when we originally talked about this, we talked about the other novels that are part of this series. I'm hoping they don't turn those into movies. Do not continue this. Do not try to turn this into a franchise. This should be a one and done. Don't do this again. It's that bad. So anyways, drop a comment in the comment section. Hit that like button. And as always, it is free to subscribe to the channel. So please do so. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.